This is Gemara in Kesubos Daf Kof Zayin, and today's shiur and the shiurim for this entire week have been sponsored by a friend of the Daf as a schos and in honor of all of those that are still zeicha to be learning the Daf together. And we'll begin with a bracha that Amir Hashem. We should conclude this incredible Masechta with a fire and a zeal, which will be the preparation for the upcoming Masechta as we thank the close friend for his partnership, and in Mir Hashem it should be a schos for everyone. And we pick it up on the bottom of Kovav and Abiz, says the Gemara, Misha Halach Lamdina Sayam, quoting the din in the Mishnah, that someone travels overseas and his wife shows up to Bezdin, and she wants to be supported from his estate. So what is the halacha? Says the Gemara, Itmar, Rav Amar, says Rav, as we turn over to today's Daf Kof Zayin and Aleph, Paiskim Zaynais Leishasish, Shmuel Amreim, Paiskim Zaynais Leishasish. A good old-fashioned Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Do we support this woman who shows up to Bezdin or not? And this is going to be the discussion for the entirety of today's daf. This Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. The Tab Rashi says, what is this din of Paiskim Zaynais Bezdin Yardon Nechsei Mishalach Lamdina Sayam? Bezdin goes down into the properties of someone who goes overseas, and gives food support to his wife. So Rav says we do such, and Shmuel says no, we do not. And Amar Shmuel says, Shmuel Maidali Abba. Abba, literally father, admits to me. This is referencing Rav. Now, Rav was not Shmuel's father, but because Rav was older than Shmuel, Shmuel references him as Abba, my father. Says Shmuel, even Rav that says that we are yes, Paiskim Zaynais, Rav admits that we do not do this for the first 3 months. Why not? Because 3 months after a man leaves his house, we assume that there's enough provisions left in the house, no one leaves their house empty, and therefore she cannot claim Zaynais for the first 3 months. Furthermore, that's the comment of Shmuel. Furthermore, comments the Gemara, when we heard that the husband dies, no one disagrees, says Rashi, de Paiskin. Everyone agrees that when we hear the man was nifter, that what happens, we are yes, Paiskin Mizaynais. As we'll see, because all the concerns of Shmuel that say that we do not give, do not apply. So the Machlekes Rav and Shmuel keep ligi b'shaloi shamu b'shemes, explains the Gemara. 6 lines from the top of Kozayin and Aleph, that when is the Machlekes? When we do not know that the man died. Rav Amar Paiskim, Rav says we give his wife food support. Da mishubela, because the husband is mishubed, is obligated to support his wife. Ushmol Amar ain't Paiskim. Why not? My taima. 2 reasons. Rav Zid Amar ima Saria Tavse. Saying Rav Zvid, you know the reason we don't support the wife is because that maybe we have to always be wondering, maybe the husband left cash, maybe he left her a bundle of money in which she should support herself from. And Rav Papa Amar, you know why we don't support her? Because maybe the husband said, you're working, you make money, allow your wages to be for your support. So 2 reasons why, according to Shmuel, in a scenario that we do not hear that the husband died, we will not support the wife with food. Either because we have to be concerned that maybe the husband left behind cash for her, or maybe because the husband told her that your earnings should be for your food. My beinayu, what is the practical ramification? What is the case that these 2 answers, Rav Zid and Rav Papa, Surya Tavse versus will differ? Ikebeinayu, says the Gemara, 2 different cases. Gedayla v'loi safka. Either in a case of a gedayla in which her earnings are not enough to feed her. And Rashi points out, either because it's years of a food shortage, so food is more expensive, or maybe she just doesn't have a good job, and therefore, according to the answer that Shmuel says, we do not give her food because maybe her wages are supposed to be for her food, it wouldn't apply in this case. Therefore, Shmuel would admit that we have to give her money. But if the reason is because of Rav Zvi that maybe left her cash, still we have to be concerned. So Shmuel will still say we do not give her food. Inami, practical ramification number 2, Ketana Visavka. A case of a Ketana who actually makes money, and Visavka, So according to that case, meaning, and her wages, again, are enough for her food. So according to Rav Papa, we would not give her in this case, or according to Rav Zvid, we would, yes, give her. As Rashi V'Sefika points out, that according to Rav Zvid, we would give her. Why? Because a person, what's the reason? Rav Zid says we always have to be worried that maybe he left her cash, because it's not normal to leave a ketana with a bundle of cash. Whereas according to Rav Papa, we do not give her, because maybe her earnings are supposed to be for her support. So two reasons explaining Rav Zvid and Rav Papa explaining Shmuel. Says the Gemara Tanan, and now is going to begin an entire list, which is going to take us basically for the rest of today's shiur of kashos against Shmuel. Says the Gemara Tanan. We learned in the Mishnah, a man goes overseas. This is our Mishnah. A man goes overseas and his wife claims support. Said Chanan in the Mishnah, she swears basayif, which we learned refers to when she collects her ksuba. She does not swear when she collects mizaynais. And she has to swear both when she's collecting mizaynais and when she's collecting the ksuba. So says the Gemara, we have a clear raya from her Mishnah. Ad kan loy pligi. What is the machlokes in the Mishnah? Elali inyin shavua. The machlokes in the Mishnah is with regard to, does this woman have to swear when she wants to collect mizaynais? Avul mizaynai yavina la. But everyone agrees in the Mishnah, both Chanan and the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim are agreeing that she gets mizaynais. So the Mishnah is a clear proof to Rav and a kasha on Shmuel, because the Mishnah shows us clearly that she gets mizaynais. Terguma Shmuel b'shabamu b'shemeis. And this is going to be Shmuel's answer always. Says Shmuel, you know what the case is talking about? B'shabamu b'shemeis. The Mishnah is when we heard the husband died, and that's why everyone agrees that she is going to get supported. Tashema, says the Gemara, let's try another kasha at Shmuel. Someone goes overseas and his wife is claiming mizaynais. Bnei Kohanim Gedolim Aimrim Tishava. The Bnei Kohanim Gedolim say she has to swear. Chanan Omar Loi Tishava. Says Chanan, no, she does not have to swear in this case. Vimba Va'amar Pasakti La Mizaynais. And let's say what happens. He comes back and he says, Pasakti La Mizaynais. I already gave her mizaynais. Neman, the husband is believed. So what do we see? That the machlokes over here in this brisa is just whether she has to make a shvu or not. But everyone agrees that the husband would theoretically have to pay. Answers the Gemara, Ask the Gemara, 1 second, the case is really, you're telling me where they heard that he died? It says that the husband shows up. If the husband shows up, clearly he did not die. Says the Gemara, you're right. Originally, we thought the case was that we heard he died. And then he shows up. Tashema, question number 3 on Shmuel. Says the Brayse, again, someone goes overseas and his wife is claiming mizaynais. If the husband shows up and the husband says, your earnings should be in place of your mizaynais, Rashai, the husband is allowed to say such, and she has to take her earnings and use it for her food. Kidmu Bezdin Upasku. But let's say before the husband shows up, Bezdin went, and Bezdin stipulated, and Bezdin went and took cash from the estate of the husband and gave it to her. Masha Pasku Pasku. What they gave her, she keeps. So we see clearly that Bezdin gives her. Answers the Gemara. Number 4, Tashima. We're 2 lines on the Y lines. Mishal, the 4th question on Shmuel. Mishal, another brisa. Bezdin yardin l'chasiv is zadin mavarnis and ishtoi. Says the brisa clearly. Bezdin goes down and feeds her. Avoloi banavu b'naisa. Bezdin feeds the wife, but not the children. V'loi davar acher, and they don't do davar acher. What exactly is davar acher? The Gemara is going to explain in a moment. So Amar Rav Sheishes. Well, excuse me, so what's the question? Again, a clear brisa showing that we're mafarnes le'ishtoi. Amar Rav Sheishes b'mashash ishtoi adishlish. this brisa is referring to when he's providing for his wife via a third party. So it's not necessarily a raya in a case where a woman just shows up to Bezdin, because here there was an agreement that this shlish, that this third party is supposed to be the one giving this woman her support. Ask the Gemara, if the case is that there is this appointee, this trustee of the estate, to give her earnings, give her support, so the children should as well get from that person. Answers the Gemara, no. We're talking about a case where this shlish, where this trustee was only there for the wife and not for the kids. Ask the Gemara, the kasha that the Gemara always asks, my paska. How do you know that? Anytime we want to make a kimta, basically, we want to say that a case is referring to specifically only case A and not case B. So says the Gemara, my paska. What's the reason that you're assuming the Bryce is referring to a case that he's masher the shlish, he appointed this trustee only for the wife and not for the kids? You know what? This case is also talking about where they heard that the husband died. Be'eid echad. An eid echad came in and said the husband died. So what is there for what? He, with regard to his wife, Dibais in Siva, in Suvi. If a woman wants to get remarried based on the eidos of an eid echad, we know the halach is she's allowed to beid echad. Matzi min Siva. She's able to get remarried. Therefore, as an extension, that means that with regard to the wife, the eidos of the eid echad has credibility. Well, therefore, mezayni nami avinu lo, we give her mezaynais. But the son and the daughters, Dibai lemesav. The children, if they wanted to go down into the state via the edis of the Yerecha, they are not able to. Therefore, they also do not get mezainis. So this is a very similar answer to the previous kashas and Shmuel that we're talking about Sheshamu by Shemes. But because this brisa had a din with regard to the kids as well, therefore we have to add on a detail that it's not just Stam Sheshamu by Shemes, that Sheshamu by Shemes be'id echad, and that's the reason why there is this differentiation between the wife versus the children. So now the Gemara just ties up loose ends and says in this brisa, my davar acher. What did the brisa mean when the brisa said that we're mafanish the ishtay, but not the children and not davar acher? Rav Chisda Amar Tachshir, Rav Yosef Amar Tzedakah. So we have machlokes. What does davar acher mean? Rav Chisda says what it means is that his wife does not get adornments, and Rav Yosef says it means we do not take from the estate tzedakah. Man da'amar tachshit, says the Gemara, according to Rav Chisda, that says that the wife does not get adornment, she does not get tachshitim. Kol shekain, certainly as we turn over to Kuf Zayin Amud Beis, certainly tzedakah, certainly we will not take this estate and use it for tzedakah, but man damar tzedakah v'tachshit yavin Allah. Why? It's not in the husband's best interest. He doesn't want his wife to not have tachshitim. He doesn't want his wife to look disgusting. Continues the Gemara. So that's answer kasha number 4 in Shmuel, and answer number 4. Continues the Gemara, Tashima, second line. Because Zayin Amid Beis, Hayavama Gimel Chadash Mishanim, Nizan is Mishal Bailam, Mikam Yelchin, Nizan Mishal Bailam, Mishal Yavam. We have a woman. She falls to Yibam. Her husband dies. Her husband's brother is waiting to do Yibam. The halacha that we learned extensively in the Gemara Yavama says that for 3 months she's not able to get remarried, she's not able to do Yibam, and therefore, because we have to wait to see if she's pregnant with a child, and therefore for those 3 months, what happens? Her husband estate has to support her. After those 3 months, she does not get fed neither from the husband's estate, and nor from the Yavam's estate. Continues the Gemara, Mikan ve'ilach. From that point in onward, let's say she comes to Bezdin and she says to the Yavam, okay, let's get this over with. Either do Yivam or do Chalitza, but I want to move on with my life. And then Ubarach, and the Yavam ran away. Nizaynais Mishal Yavam. Then the Yavam is obligated to feed this woman. So what do we see? We see that when the Yavam runs away, he has to feed her. So it's a regular case of an estate feeding his wife or some level of wife. As over here, they didn't actually do Yibam. when he's overseas. So it's a question again on Shmuel. Omer lecha Shmuel. So says Shmuel. Now we get a little bit more Yesaitistic. Says Shmuel, the reason why, in general, I did not require the estate to pay the wife was for one of two concerns. Either because Surari Atafse, either because we're concerned that the husband left over cash, or because maybe the husband said to her, your Maisi Yadel, your earnings should be as your support. So says Shmuel now, 6 lines from the top of Kuvzayin Beis. In this case of the Yavam, Lamai Nechashla. For what are we suspectful? Lahai, Imishab Surari, Lamikravidai Gaba. If the concern is usually for Surari that the husband left over a bundle of cash, a Yavam would never do that. And if it's because the Maisi Yadeh that the Yavam said your earnings should be as your support, it can't be. Because her earnings are not mishubet to him, that he has the right to say that your earnings have to be in place of your support. And therefore, says Shmuel, it's true. In this case, I would agree that the Yavam has to pay her because all the concerns do not apply. Tashima continues the Gemara 10 lines on the top. First word line is Ta, another kasha on Shmuel. Now the woman goes with her husband overseas, Ubasa, and she comes back by herself, Amra Meiz Baili, and she says, my husband died, and Ratzatz and Izainis, Ratzatz Goiva Kesubos. Says the Raisa, she says that my husband died, she now has a choice. She wants Ratzatz and Izainis, she can collect her support. Ratzatz Goiva Kesubos. She wants, she can collect her Kesuba. Gershani Bali. But if she said, my husband divorced me overseas, Misparnes says, V'aleches ad kidei Kesubos. Then the halacha is, she's supported until the value of her Kesuba. So what do we see? We see that in the last case of this Brisa, she is being supported by the husband's estate. Seemingly, a raya to Rav, a kasha to Shmuel, answers the Gemara, the case is where we heard that the husband died, and that's where Shmuel agrees. Says the Gemara, so what did the Brisa mean that she gets supported until the value of her Ksuba? Explains the Gemara, she caused herself to lose from the fact that she said that he divorced me. Meaning, says the Gemara, that in reality, if she said nothing, she would have gotten regular support, because it's the case that Shmuel agrees, but because she claimed that her husband divorced her, she only gets until the value of the Ksuba. Tashima continues the Gemara, asking on Shmuel, Keitzad, says the Braisa, Keitzad Amru Mevanes Ein Lagim Mizaynais. In what case does a woman that does miyan, a miyan we've learned many times, a katana that got married off by her family, and then she decides she does not want to continue to get married, she walks out of the marriage. Says this Braisa, a Keitzad, in what case do we say that Mima Enes, a woman that does miyan that walks out of the marriage, Ein La Mizaynis, does not get Mizaynis? Can't be a case in which she's still living with her husband. Why? Because the husband has to feed her. Rather, the case must be where her husband goes overseas, loves Sava, and when he was not there, she borrowed cash, and she used that money to buy herself food. Then she gets up while the husband is still overseas. She walked out of the marriage. So explains the Gemara, Taimad, and that's the case, Keitzad, that this Mimaenes, a woman who does miyan, does not get mezainis, is in this unique case that the husband went, she borrowed cash, and then she walked out of the marriage. So says the Gemara, Taimad de miyana. We see clearly it's only because she walked out of the marriage. Halai miyana yavinallah. The clear implication is that she did not walk out of the marriage. Then she would, yes, get support. Shmuel answers, again, similar to the answer by the Yavam. What are we concerned about in this case? If you worry that the husband left her cash, or like Tanaloi Matvis, as we've already seen on Amid Aleph, in one of the answers explaining the nafkamina between Rav Zin and Rav Baba to a Katana, we never have this concern that he leaves our cash, because you don't leave a cash to a Katana. And if the concern is for Maisi Yadeh, for a Katana, we will not, her Maisi Yadeh are never going to be enough to pay for her support. And that's the reason why in this case, the practical din is that, yes, Shmuel would agree that she gets supported. So says the Gemara, after all these lengthy questions, I think it was 6 or 7 questions on Shmuel, in which Shmuel held his own. Says the Gemara, Ma Yahave Allah, what is the maskana? What is the maskana? Ki Asar Avdimi Amar Maisa Balafnei Rebbe Bebeishar. A story came on a Rebbe Bebeishar Mupasik Allah Mizainis, and Rebbe gave Mizainis. Lefnei Rebbe Yishmael B'tzipari V'loi Pasik Mizainis. We have two different stories. Rebbe gave and Rebbe Yishmael did not. Why did Rav Yishmael not give Mizainis? And what was Rav Yechanan's kasha? Rav Yechanan's kasha and Rav Yishmael was our Mishnah, which was indeed, if everyone remembers, the first kasha on Shmuel. In our Mishnah was whether she has to swear. Everyone agreed that she gets mizainis. So why would Rav Yishmael Lamaisa not give her mizainis? Amar Le responds Rav Shemin bar Abba Kvar Tigmar Rabbeinu Shmuel. The same answer that Shmuel gave for the Mishnah. That the Mishnah is not a rayok. The Mishnah could be talking about where they heard that he died. Amar Le, so Rav Yechon responds, really, are you going to explain the Mishnah that way? It's not such a kishmak way to explain the Mishnah, and Rav Yechon was not so happy with that interpretation. But Lamaisa, so far, the Gemara is concluding that what was the maskana? So Machlek is Rebbe and Rabbi Yishmael. Another story, Kiyasa Rav and Amar Maisa Balafnei Rebbe B'Bisharim Lo Baslam Mezainis. Now it's reversed. Rebbe did not give Mezainis. Rabbi Yishmael B'Tzipari Baslam Mezainis. And again, I'm Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Yishmael Basla. And now in this version of the Gemara, we ask in Rebbe, why did he not give? On the first wide line, Elinin Shvua. They only argue with regard to the swearing of Mazini Avinullah. Amar Le Rav Shemin bar Abba Kvar Tigmar Shmuel B'Vavel K'Sheshamu Bai Shemis. And Amar Le Rav Yechon says, he doesn't like that interpretation. So we're ending off that we have Rebbe and Rabbi Yishmael arguing about what is the maskana, whether we're going to be giving mizainis or not, and concludes the Gemara ve'elchsa kavase derav upaskim mizainis leishesish. We paskin like Rav. So it's interesting, all the questions Shmuel deflected, and the halacha l'maisa, it seems to be a debate between Rebbe and Rabbi Yishmael, but says the Gemara, halacha l'maisa, Rav paskin mizainis. Now, once we're on the topic of Rav, says the Gemara almost randomly on the fourth wide line, regarding a different halacha that we learned much earlier on in the Masechta on Daf Yomi, a woman is able to tell her husband, I don't want to give you my Maisi Yodah, I don't want to give you my earnings, and I'm not going to get supported from you. And finally, the Gemara concludes, because we had Rav Zvid on Amar Aleph, Rav Zvid, we're past like Rav Zvid, be kunya. With regard to a kunya, what is a kunya? This is completely random. A kunya is a glazed vessel. That what's the halacha damar Rav Zvid, honey mani the kunya, these glazed utensils, chayuri v'ochmi shari. If the glazed vessels are chayuri v'ochmi, white ones and black ones are allowed. But yeroki, the green ones, are asiri. But it's only if there's no kartofni, as Rashi says, our bikuim are cracks, avlisba kartofni, then asiri, earthenware vessels cannot be kasher. We assume they absorb the taste, and you cannot get it out. And that is the final psak halacha, like we're passing like Rav Zvid. And Amir Tashem will pick it up from the Mishnah in the next.